Inside and out, everyone you know has got 'em. Your mom and dad and all your friends. Enjoy your scars, scars, scars. Enjoy your scars.
A little note before we begin this episode of Bearing Scars, because today we're going to do something a little different. Since our previous episode was aired, we've had some news in the Bearing Scars world, and I think it warrants our first ever replay of a previous episode. On our first episode of Bearing Scars, we met with Desmond Meade, a man who in 2 decades went from homeless drug addict in Miami to one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people in the world and a Nobel Peace Prize nominee. Desmond is the epitome of overcoming self-inflicted wounds to better themselves. But his success is not wholly unique. So if we've already met Desmond, why the revisit? Because since our last episode of Bearing Scars aired, Desmond launched a bid to become Florida's next governor. What an epic turnaround story that would be if he went from his previous depths to becoming the governor of the third largest state in the nation. Desmond is running with no party affiliation, and he will face tough competition from the Republican and Democratic nominees in November. Today's program is in no way meant to be an endorsement, and I invite the other major candidates to come on to Bearing Scars and discuss their stories. This offer is genuine, and as those who have listened to previous episodes of Bearing Scars can attest, we don't care about your political stance on issues. We care about the struggles you've overcome to be the person you are today, and how others can learn and know they are not alone in what they're dealing with every day. If you like this episode, I encourage you to listen to our other episodes and follow us on whichever podcast platform you use. Our episode titled A Wrestler's Addiction covered the addiction and recovery story of WWE superstar Matt Morgan. We aired an emotional episode titled Her Deadly Secret, where someone you know as a Chamber of Commerce president reveals for the first time the deadly consequences of her addiction. The Quiet Man introduced us to the former CEO of a garbage company who was molested for years as a child. 40 years after he thought the abuse had ended, his abuser returned. In Finding Her Voice, the actress we all remember as the voice of Sally in Charlie Brown cartoons reveals her spiral and eventual peace. We met a former mafia enforcer in The Family Business. The New Englander's life had predictable consequences, including prison, being shot in the back of the head, and an amazing transformation. We went to the heartland of America for a chilling episode titled Soccer Mom, Dealer, to meet an Idaho mother whose own addiction inadvertently caused her to become a drug dealer to, of all people, her own son. If you've seen the Amazon Prime documentary, Rom-Con, Who the F is Jason Porter, you already know some of the story of the featured victim. But what our episode of Bearing Scars with Heather Rovette revealed were secrets even her mother didn't know until it aired. In The Uncancelable Man, we learned some techniques to overcome adversity when it seems the whole world is against you. In the weeks to come, we'll meet Muhammad Ali's staffer, whom he called Little Trouble, as well as a former senator brought down by his own self-inflicted scandal. We've established a level of trust with our guests and our listeners, and I think you'll find these real-life stories inspiring. Please follow our show to continue listening and rate us on your podcast platform of choice. With that, I present, with no edits, no paid sponsorships, another listen to Desmond Meade on Bearing Scars. Today on Bearing Scars, Nobel Peace Prize nominee and one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people in the world, Desmond Meade.
That day in August, I stood in front of those tracks and I waited for some time for a train to come. And I was ready to end my life.
Desmond discusses his journey from drug addiction, court-martial, prison, and homelessness.
And one was like, I want to be a police officer. I didn't raise my hand and say, when I grow up, I wanted to be a crackhead.
And finally, second chances.
Like, oh my God, this is a sign. It's a miracle. Something special is going to happen. What I really didn't understand at the moment was I was actually uncracking one of the cheat codes of life. And that is, man, that you can take the bad things and turn them into great things. This is the first time I've ever done an interview where I've actually said,
inside and out, everyone you know has got 'em. Your mom and dad and all your friends. Enjoy your scars, scars, scars. Enjoy your scars.
Welcome to the premiere of Bearing Scars. I'm your host, Michael Ertel. Bearing Scars is more than a podcast. We're having raw discussions with those who have gone from prison to prominence, from debilitating addiction to public adoration, from youthful indiscretion to business dominance, and from career-ending scandal to a redefining of their life's work. But those leaders are not alone. We all bear scars from our own huge mistakes. In this series, I won't be shy about exposing my own self-inflicted scars, from my private shame of being a homeless high school dropout to my very public last day as Florida's 34th Secretary of State. I too will discuss my scars, but that's for a later episode. Today, we're meeting our first guest. When the concept of bearing scars was coming to fruition, I always had one person in mind to be this first guest, and what a guest we have. You may not have heard of Desmond Meade, but after today, you will have met a Nobel Peace Prize nominee, one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people in the world, and who, as president and executive director of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, was the architect of a constitutional amendment to create a clear pathway for the restoration of voting rights for more than 1.4 million people. But just 20 years ago, Desmond Meade was on a different pathway, being another statistic. He was a drug addict, had been court-martialed out of the Army, had spent time behind bars, and found himself homeless, wandering the streets, and was in the depths of despair. His despair led him to make a choice one late evening in 2005. He was going to end it all, or begin it all again. Today we'll hear the story of a man I have known and respected for more than a decade. Today, we meet Desmond Meade. Desmond Meade, welcome to Bearing Scars.
hey, Mike, what's up? How you doing?
This is a great day because you are our first guest. And you're our first, wow. I know, you're our first guest for a reason, because when we were coming up with the concept of Bearing Scars, the one person that came in mind was Desmond Meade. Oh.
Well, I don't know if this means you set the bar high or you set it low.
All I'm saying is every single guest from here on in is using you as their barometer for greatness.
They're going to have to bring it then.
They are going to have to bring it.
This first episode is going to be the bomb.
It is going to be the bomb diggity, as the kids nowadays say, which I don't think they say anymore.
They don't.
So we're going to start how we're going to start every single episode, which is by asking our guest, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, man, that was easy. You know, I tell folks all the time, man, when I was a little kid, I wanted to grow up to be one out of two things. Either an attorney, because my mom had me looking at the old Perry Mason shows, or a pilot, because there was just something that was so cool and swaggish about being a pilot.
And what did as you're a kid, your mom, how did she help to guide you to get one of those two things?
Well, you know, I don't think I've ever I don't recall sitting down on my mom's lap and saying, hey, Mom, you know, when I grow up, I want to be a lawyer or I want to be a pilot. But the one thing that my mom did do that contributed to any success I've had in life and to prepare me to be anything I wanted to be was that she believed in knowledge. She believed in reading. She believed that, you know, that once you read something or once you learn something, no one could ever take that away from you. And so probably the most pivotal thing she did was when I was in elementary, she enrolled me into the weekly reader program. Now, the old timers will probably know about that. Right?
Totally remember the weekly reader program.
And so I'm a
Nerds Unite. That's right. Yes,
right?
Yeah.
And so I was a big man. Let me tell you, my favorite books to get were Encyclopedia Brown, because this little kid used to solve all these major mysteries in this small town. But every week, I got a book. It came like clockwork. And let me tell you, she got me into the habit of always reading. And it was so bad that I could not even use the restroom without reading.
Right.
I had to have something in my hand to read while using the restroom. And so I gained a wealth of knowledge, didn't even realize what was happening at the time. But reading was extremely fun to me, and it helped expand my horizons.
You know, Encyclopedia Brown, so we're about the same age. You're a couple years older than me. But I had every single one of those Scholastic Encyclopedia Brown books. Because, I mean, look at me. I look like them. I look like that kid. Right. So we could probably go back and talk about Encyclopedia Brown nerd history for...
Yes. Oh, my God. I had every single one.
That's awesome. And the funny thing is, for someone who is such a reader like you, is that you're self-taught. You know, when you're at home and you're in your bedroom, you're just sitting there reading yourself, and so you're self-taught, which is interesting because that's, as we move forward to your successful years, that's what you did. That entrepreneurial spirit to be self-taught, reading your books at home. As you're going through school, what cliques were you in?
Well, in elementary, I think I was solo. Right. Like I said, I was into books big time. Probably even slightly in junior high as well. But when I got to high school, that's when the struggle started, right? Because I had competing cliques, right? I had the nerd clique and I had the jock clique, because I played football and I wrestled, and I shortchanged myself. I don't know. I'm trying to think if I talked about that in my book I wrote a while back.
And what the name of the book?
Let My People Vote.
Let My People Vote. And that's available right now on Amazon.com.
Right now on Amazon.com.
And anyone comes down here to the headquarters, you'll sign it for them if they wish.
But I definitely will. After they read it, though.
Well, they have to read it, right?
They have to read it. I'm going to quiz them.
If they give a book report, then they get to, gotcha.
But that was a struggle for me because I wanted to be the jock or the cool kid, but then I also was fascinated with education and learning and reading and knowledge and a critical thinking. That was really what made my blood flow. But it seemed like all of the jocks were the ones that was having fun. That was having fun in school, and so I would dumb myself down. I, subconsciously did not try as hard because I think part of it is because I didn't want to seem as nerdy, so I could fit in with all of the cool kids.
What? So you're a big fella. What position did you play?
Oh man, let me tell you, I played a lot of positions. Mm-hmm. One of the first positions that I played was in the offensive line. But then
makes sense. Yeah.
Then this is a guy named Brian Bosworth. I was a huge fan. Ended up playing defensive line and middle linebacker.
Middle linebacker is the captain of the defense. Basically, is the one who is calling the plays and guiding everybody around.
I got a fun story.
Talk about it.
So when I was in middle school, I started playing football. We had a little conflict there because my dad was a preacher. When you're a son of a preacher, you have to attend all of the church services. And he just so happened to have a church that had about a gazillion services throughout the week. And on Fridays when there's normally a game day, that's youth Bible study, right? And so I have to go to youth services. And the conflict was that he was okay with me playing football, but I could not miss church for a football game. And most of our games was on a Friday. And so I didn't know what else to tell the coach, so I made up a story, and I told him I was Jewish.
That's amazing.
I told him, I said, listen, because I remember
sundown to sundown.
Yeah. Sammy Davis Jr. was Jewish, so I told him, listen, I'm Jewish, so I can't, because of religious purpose. I don't know why I just didn't say religious and I'm a Christian, whatever. No, I just told him I was Jewish.
So you're a smart kid.
Oh, yeah.
And you're doing all the right things. Yeah. Then you join the football, you graduate from high school, you join the military to go be a helicopter mechanic. We'll talk about the military just a little bit. And that's where the knuckleheaded stuff starts, right?
Oh, no, it started in school.
Okay.
It started in school.
Let's back up. Where did knuckleheaded start?
In school. And I used to tell folks that, when I was a little kid, I wanted to be a lawyer and I wanted to be a pilot, right? And I tell folks that, listen, when I was in the sandbox playing with all the other kids, and Sally was like, when I grow up, I want to be a nurse. And John was like, when I grow up, I want to be a doctor. And one was like, I want to be a police officer. I didn't raise my hand and say, when I grow up, I wanted to be a crackhead or I wanted to be incarcerated. I wanted to be a person with a felony conviction, in and out of jail and addicted to drugs. That was not a childhood dream of mine. But that became my reality because of drug addiction. And that drug addiction, or that drug use, I should say, started at, around like high school. And sometimes I could say a little earlier than that because I started drinking earlier. But those things was the runway to eventually me being in the military and then being exposed to the hardcore stuff and then getting deeper into the addiction in the military. And of course, running into some problems there, which speaks once again to the paradox, the constant paradox in my life, from the jock versus nerd guy, and now in the military where, I was like soldier of the quarter. That was like the number one soldier out of thousands of folks in Hawaii, right? They said I was the number one on the entire island for a quarter of a year, and to going from that and Army Achievement Medals to getting court-martialed because I had a positive urinalysis and I was caught shoplifting to support my drug habit. That's the thing. Military promotes drinking. A lot of folks don't realize that. Like, we used to have mandatory formations at the beer tree, right? And all of the warrant officers had to buy kegs of beer, and we had to assemble there, and then we were dismissed to take the rest of the day off. But they put the beer in front of us, and what do you expect? We're going to drink. And so,
in aviation, the warrant officers are the pilots, and so they're the ones that, and you're one of the mechanics. So they're basically it's the equivalent of a quarterback buying his offensive line a bunch of drinks to help out. Thank you so much for helping me make this flight a success.
Let's hang out together.
Yep.
Once again, it's fun. You're socializing with each other, but we all have our bottoms, or we all have that moment when we could stop and think, well, maybe I might have a problem, and maybe I need to do something about it.
And sadly, for a young Desmond Meade, that was not your rock bottom.
No, nah.
when you get out of the Army, then you come back home, and you continue along those same kinds of things that got you in trouble in the military. So you're continuing to do these knuckleheaded things while you're back home, right?
Oh, yeah. When I got back home, that kind of like reignited, the urge. And yeah, that was the straw that broke the camel's back when I was reintroduced to cocaine to stay up. And next thing you know, now it's taken me to another level. And let me back that up, because I think the real straw, the real incident was when my mom passed. And that's why I had nothing else left after that. And so I could dive right into anything, it was crazy because I've always been a mama's boy. And I used to pray. I really used to pray that God would let me die before my mother, because I don't think that I could handle her passing. I loved her that much, and that didn't happen. And when she passed away, I was angry at God, and I really missed my mom, the whole 9 yards, and I just let everything go. And it was around 6 months after that. A little bit more than 6 months. Yeah, within 6 months, I destroyed her legacy, and about a little over a year after she passed away was that's when it just started going haywire.
When you said you feel like you destroyed her legacy, what do you mean by that?
Well, listen, what do we want? Everyday citizens here, man. We want to be able to leave something for our kids. We want to be able to buy a home, right, and build memories in that home for our children, and have that home passed down to them, and then they could pass it down to their children. and that we could live comfortably. And my mother, she struggled. She worked as a waitress and as a housekeeper. And she drove herself or worked herself to the ground, to the grave, so I could have a roof over my head, so I could have clothes on my back and food in my stomach. And after she passed away, the house that she worked so hard for, I lost in 6 months, and I totally destroyed it. I ripped out all of the wiring. I ripped out any kind of thing that I can sell. In my book, I wrote about how the back wall of my mom's house was a bunch of jealous windows, right? And they were all aluminum. You can sell it, and I just totally dismantled the whole thing to where I didn't have a back wall anymore in my mom's house. So now it looked like the house was a stage, and the outside was where the audience sat. And so I guess in a sense I was a rock star because I did it for crack cocaine. But I remember that and selling whatever I could out of the house to where it just became a shell of what she had built. And what was supposed to be part of her legacy that was passed down to me and then her grandchildren. And I totally destroyed that because of drug addiction.
But then you woke up. You were homeless.
Yep.
And as you're homeless, you're checking in, and you decide in August of 2005, this has to change. You hit rock bottom. Was it August 2005?
Well, August of 2005 is when I hit rock bottom. I think it took a couple of months after that for me to actually get to that level. I wasn't there yet. All I know was that day in August, I stood in front of those tracks and I waited for some time for a train to come. And I was ready to end my life. I knew that, I totally destroyed my mom's legacy. I know she didn't raise me. I was raised in a Christian family. I wasn't raised to be in the position I was that day. And but there I was. I'll tell you an interesting story about the night before, or I should say the day before. The day before that, I was trying to finagle one of my friends out of some money so I can buy some drugs, and he did an old New Testament line on me. He was like, I don't have any money, but something I have is a little bit better. And he was like, I need you to go and find this lady of God that I know at this particular church and have her pray for you. And when he told me that, something inside me, my spirit quickened. And I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And I had maybe some spare change in my pocket and not enough to get there and back. Not even enough to get there, but enough to get me most of the way there, and then I have to walk maybe a mile or so. And it was the last I had, and I actually spent it on bus fare to go see this lady. And then when I was walking up to the church, maybe a block or two away, it dawned on me. It's like, knucklehead, you're in the middle of the week. How many churches are open in the middle of the week? This is not Sunday.
Right.
And so you just spent your last money on a wild goose chase. Right, I started panicking, and I kept walking. And as I walked, I seen the church was open. I'm like, oh my God, this is a sign. It's a miracle. Something special is going to happen because this is a miracle. And I remember going in. Church had just started. I walked in at the beginning, sat in the back, sat through the whole service, rekindled some old spirits in me because, like I said, I'm a preacher's kid. And at the end of the service, I remember approaching this lady and said, listen, I am a drug addict, I'm homeless, but I'm not coming to you for money, food, or clothes. A friend of mine has told me that if I can get you to pray for me, my life will change. Will you please pray for me? That was the line. She put her arms around me and pointed at another guy and said, you see that guy over there? I was like, yes, ma'am. She said, go to him and make an appointment for tomorrow. And in my head, I'm screaming. I'm like, woman, don't you realize I just spent my last to come here? And that all I'm asking is you to get like the olive oil, whatever this stuff is, and put the cross on my forehead and put your hands on me and just pray for me. Why do I have to set an appointment for the following day? I don't have a place to live. Where am I going to be tonight? Where am I going to sleep tonight? it was just so many things that was going through my head. And so I left her, but I never went to the guy. I walked out of the church, and as I was walking out, what I said to myself was, man, even God has turned his back on me. And that was a moment when, because I've been homeless. I've slept behind Dipsy dumpsters. I've slept in abandoned buildings. But one thing I never did was sleep out in public, because I didn't want an old high school friend or family member to drive by and see me, sleeping on the sidewalk or whatever. That night was the first night I just didn't care anymore, and I slept on a bus bench in one of the busiest thoroughfares in Dade County, Florida. I remember saying, that's it. No, God don't even want to have anything to do with me. When I woke up the next morning, I said, I'm going to give it another shot, and I went to a drug treatment facility. And ironically, and I'm thinking I'm getting in to get help, but part of their process, in order to get into the program, you have to take a urinalysis. And so they come back and say, you have cocaine in your system. We can't accept you, which baffles me to this day.
Right.
Like, if you are a drug treatment program for people that's addicted to drugs, how do you expect them to stay clean long enough to give you a negative urinalysis? Because if I could stay clean enough to give you a clean urine, that means that maybe I'm not addicted to drugs.
Right.
The fact that I can't stay clean is telling you that I need help, and they actually rejected me. And when that rejection happened, that I was walking to another place and railroad tracks. As I was approaching the railroad tracks, I remember this newspaper article I read maybe like a couple of weeks prior that talked about a guy committing suicide by train, and I became fixated with that. And when I finally got to the tracks, I couldn't cross. Mm-hmm. I just stopped.
What stopped you?
Just thoughts. I'm like, I couldn't cross those tracks. I'm like, I'm there, and I'm waiting on this train. And while I'm waiting on this train, because I'm ready. Like, what else do I have? There's no light at the end of the tunnel, right? When God turns his back on you, when a drug treatment facility tells you that you're too much of an addict to be admitted into their program, like, what else do I have left?
But turns out Desmond Meade had a lot more left. He had drive, he had ambition, and he knew what he wanted to be when he grew up. When we return, we're going to go through Desmond's rebound story and how he became the man, and I mean that truly, the man that he is today. We'll be right back.
When a person calls 988, they're connected to a crisis counselor.
A caller can expect to talk about coping skills, talk about resources, and ways to move forward beyond the call.
They can call us, they can chat, they can text, and when they come out on the other side, they're feeling better.
Call or text 988 or chat 988lifeline.org.
Enjoy your scars, scars, scars. Enjoy your scars.
Welcome back to Bearing Scars. Today we're with Desmond Meade. You may know him as one of Time's 100 most influential people in the world, but what you may not know is the path that he took in order to become the man that he is today. We've already talked about how he reached his rock bottom. Now we're going to talk about how he elevated himself, rebounded from where he was to where he is today, one of the most respected men in the entire world. Let's talk a little bit, Desmond, about when you decided to go into the homeless shelter and go to school from within the homeless shelter and the drug rehabilitation facility, because you initially were rejected from one drug rehab because you were too addicted. You were too addicted.
Yeah, isn't that something?
So tell me, what was that one point that made you cross the path and cross the line into, all right, let's get Desmond back into gear?
Well, first and foremost, let me just tell you, the train never came.
Right.
All right, so I don't know what I would have done. But eventually, I guess I got tired of waiting, and then you just move on. And so after I crossed the tracks, it just so happened that there was this a facility 2 blocks further, and it's a central intake facility, and it's run by a local hospital, and they would receive all types of people seeking help, all different types of help, whether it's substance abuse, whether it's psychiatric or whatever. And they serve as a clearinghouse, and they would do an assessment and then try to place people in appropriate institutions. And so I was actually able to get placed into a drug treatment program, in-house treatment program, that lasted about 4 months. When I was in the program, Rosa Parks, civil rights legend, she passed away, and they had her memorial service in the rotunda of the Capitol in D.C. And I just so happened to be in the room looking at the broadcast of it while I was in treatment. And it was something about seeing that like ignited some type of passion in me. Like I wanted, I've seen so many people with tears in their eyes. And let me jump back because and just to show you the significance of that moment was that when I initially crossed those railroad tracks, I did stop for a second and look back at those tracks. And I'd ask myself, Desmond, if that train would have came and you jumped in front of it and it killed you, how many people would come to your funeral? And the initial answer was that nobody, right? Because I'm a homeless guy on the street. I don't know if I even had an idea or whatever. I'd probably been buried in a pauper's grave. And so I was like, well, I don't like that. So I'm going to change the scenario. And I created a scenario of, okay, you killed by the train, but the Miami Herald, which is a local paper, have your picture on the front page, top of the fold, Desmond killed by train. Now, how many people would come? And I thought long and hard, and I only came up with 4 people. And out of those 4, maybe 2 would have shed a tear. And that was a very humbling thought. And I had took that thought with me into drug treatment. And there I was sitting, watching Rosa Parks' memorial service and seeing like thousands of people with tears in their eyes. And something hit me then. It was like I jumped up and I started screaming at the television. Like, that's what I want. I want to be remembered. I started planning my funeral, and I wanted my funeral where the Dolphins played. I'm trying to think where I'm going to have my funeral. I want to have it at Dolphin Stadium. Like, I want chairs on the field, standing room only, not a dry eye in the house. And what it was I just wanted to feel as if I was worth something. That my life, the time that I spent on this planet, was worth something. I landed on the location, but the problem I ran into was trying to figure out, how can I get that type of audience to a funeral? What type of person could command that type of audience? And here I was thinking about this same thing, this memorial service for Desmond Meade, who was killed by a train.
I find it fascinating as we think about our legacy in life, and what your goal was less about how I'm going to live my life and instead of how my life will be remembered. And so you could have gone in many different ways in order to have a stadium filled with people honoring your legacy. What was it about helping other people that became the path to you helping?
I didn't get there yet. I didn't get there yet. It all came down to the fact that I got kind of disillusioned because I figured I couldn't be a movie star and I couldn't be an athlete. All right. And so my mind went back to Rosa Parks quickly. And I realized that she committed an act, that she did something that caused some type of positive reaction. And even years after, whatever, she did that act, people were still benefiting from her act.
Yep.
And so I thought that if I could take the pain and the suffering, that low self-esteem, the misery that led me to those railroad tracks, and package it in such a way to help someone else who may be headed that direction. And so I figured that if I could start helping people, it would have a exponential impact, right? Because now they can help change people's lives, and the people's lives who they change can help change people's lives. Mm-hmm. And so I figured that if I can do that, then pretty soon, it's a lot of folks to fill up a Dolphin Stadium, but pretty soon I might get there, And I can't say that, you know what, now that this is the first time I've ever done an interview where I've actually said, I think I did that already. I think I have impacted enough lives to fill a stadium.
You absolutely have. We'll talk about 1.4 million people
right?
later on.
That's what I'm saying. I'm thinking about, whoa. But that was my motivation, was that I wanted to fill a stadium. And I knew that the only way, since I couldn't be an athlete or movie star, the only way I could do it is by making a difference in someone else's life. And what I really didn't understand at that moment was I was actually uncracking one of the cheat codes of life. And that is, man, that you could take the bad things and turn them into great things.
Mm-hmm. And you take your middle school Desmond, who has those two competing cliques on his shoulders, mm-hmm. the nerd clique and the let's do stupid stuff clique. Mm-hmm. And you kicked that let's do stupid stuff clique off, and you went back to your nerd clique because you went to college. You went to college.
Yeah,
and so how'd you get into college? What was the process of you getting into college and deciding that, you know what, I want to do this to...
I used to drive, let me tell you, when I was living in the homeless shelter, I used to go by the local colleges every day and just like be jealous of all of the students that are going back and forth to class. And you know, I would always go to the library, sometimes the law library, and, you know, get on the computers and do some reading, whatever. And I decided, you know what, let me check out the college library. And when I found out that I could actually get into the library and use their computers, oh, man. And I'm looking around, and I was like, you know what? Let me give this a shot, because I really didn't think that I could actually go to college.
And you're in your late 30s at this point.
I'm in my 30s,
You're in your mid to late 30s. You're homeless. You still have some drugs in your system potentially, even if it's after a while. And you're saying, I can do this. If there's anybody listening here today, mm-hmm. and this is your trigger point, your spark, what was it that if someone's listening and says, I can't do this because this is in the way, or that's in the way, or that's in the way, can you imagine somebody in any more vulnerable situation than being homeless, mid to late 30s,
addicted to drugs,
crack cocaine, terrible resume.
Yep. Arrest record a mile long, mm-hmm. the whole 9 yards, in and out of trouble, got kicked out of the military. Mm-hmm. Yeah, all of those things, yes, I own that, and I've been through that. And I think that, you know what, that anyone that's listening to this, right, that have any kind of obstacle in front of them, they have got to now believe that nothing is impossible for them. Listen, come on, think about it. Mike, let's stop and let's think about it right now. Out of all the people, and you know a lot of people in Florida, you know a lot of people in the world. You do. I know you do. You're an important guy. And out of all the folks that you know, how many people can you say you've met that have been named one of the 100 most influential people in the world, a MacArthur Genius Fellow, Floridian of the Year, and nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize? How many people can you say you know that has all of those things?
And think about that. Think about all the folks who in life have mm-hmm. Started on third base, mm-hmm. and you hit the home run with 2 strikes against you.
with 2.5.
Yeah, 2.5 strikes against you, and there's a fastball coming. Yeah. And then you just, so if you can do it,
then everybody listening, no matter what, this is what I'm saying. And this is almost like this guy who was all of those things and had the history that I had, whatever, could overcome that and be who I am today, then that tells you that you have a fighting chance.
And you're not the only one.
You're not the only one. You are not alone.
And Desmond, you're not alone.
Yeah.
You know, you're not. You as you're reading, you're seeing other people who have, as you're a kid, you've seen other people who have overcome so many obstacles, and so they were kind of your motivation as well. So who were some of those folks that may have been your motivation that you're thinking, I want to be a lot more like this person?
You know, I didn't. So, you know, you would think that I had that, but I'll be totally honest with you, I didn't. What was let me tell you what my focal point was on. Very simple formula. If you take care of God's business, He takes care of yours, mm-hmm. and He does a much better job than you could do. Mm-hmm. And I figured out early on what God's business was for me. That is a pivotal question in life. Like, who am I? Why am I even here on this earth? I think we ask ourselves that, and that's a mystery, but our life begins the day we find out why we're here, our purpose, right? And for me, it was so simple. It was a simple equation. How can I continue doing God's work? Or how could I do things every day to make the world a better place? Now, let me tell you, when I was in drug treatment, I would get on my knees and I would do what they call now, what I now know as the Solomon's Prayer, where I prayed for my enemies, right? And I prayed that they got to experience the love and protection that I've experienced from my higher power, who I choose to call God. And then I prayed for my family so that they'll be safe. And then I prayed for the wisdom. I prayed for the knowledge and the discernment to continue to do God's work. And I tell folks today, I would be in a room full of strangers, and I could tell them, I said, listen, when I was on my knees praying, I was praying for you because I love you. And you may find that strange because how could I say I love someone who I never met? It was because my experiences that led me to the railroad tracks have developed in me a profound understanding and respect for our shared humanity. The ultimate cheat code for love is wanting for your neighbor what you want for yourself. And that was my inspiration. That was my focus. That was what drove me.
Yeah. And so you're at Miami-Dade College. You graduate. And not only do you graduate pretty high honors, right?
Yeah.
How high honors? Yeah.
Like real high.
Yeah.
Real high.
And then from there you decide, I'm 5-year-old Desmond. I'm going to go get a law degree.
Yeah. And let me tell you, it started with after I got my associates, I was like, you know what? Let me pursue a bachelor's now. And so I decided to say, you know what? Let me get public safety management with a concentration in criminal justice. Because I figured I had a lot of experience getting arrested and appearing before judges and going to prison. That's going to help me succeed in the classroom. You know what? It did. It did. And once again, highest honors. And then the professors was like, hey, law school. And I was like, wow. And I said, you know what? Because I want to help people. And I figured the best way to help people to have a thorough, because nothing is more intertwined in our lives than law. Law is in every aspect of it. And the better understanding I had of law, the more I'm able to help folks. And so I thought, okay, well, let me apply to law school.
And then,
lo and behold.
Did you graduate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I made the dean's list.
And you made
And I made the dean's list.
But more importantly to your life, during that time frame, during the 2010 to 2013-14 time frame, you met somebody. Tell me about Sheena.
Oh, wow. I didn't know you were going there that quick. Man, let me tell you. He put this young lady in my life, man, that is just so amazing. And I tell folks that's probably the smartest thing I ever did was quickly recognize who she was, and that was God's gift to me.
How'd you meet?
She in Tallahassee. I was going up there trying to recruit a keynote speaker for a conference I was trying to put on, and someone came and went to introduce me to one of their leaders, and my wife happened to be next to her. And when I seen my wife, I was like, I think I was supposed to come and meet you. And it wasn't a pickup line. It was just something just came over me and said, this is the person that you needed to meet. That you came, and I had no clue whatsoever. But quickly identified her as, like I said, I recognized her as God's gift to me. And I met her in February. Our initial date was on Valentine's Day.
Smart, very smart.
In June of that same year, I proposed to her on her birthday. And in December of that same year, I married her. And we've been married now for 13 years. Right?
And you did something pretty amazing. She had a couple kids, more than a couple kids. And you adopted them.
Oh, yeah.
All 5.
They're my kids.
Yeah,
they're
my
your
kids.
They're my kids. But the part I want to get to with her, and this will be embarrassing if she hears it, but the other day it dawned on me that she is an awesome, and I use this term lightly, first lady, right? And I say this,
I know what you mean,
right? Because when I look, so many times people, always pay attention to a lot of first ladies, whether they're presidents, first ladies, or gubernatorial first ladies, whatever, right? But so I look at her as my first lady, like in that same light. And it dawned on me that the only one comparable to her was Eleanor Roosevelt. And the reason why I say that is because my wife, she leads a national organization called Clean Slate Initiative that works across the aisle, and they actually facilitate or automate a record clearing process so there wouldn't be barriers for people being able to get jobs, education, and housing and such. To date, over 18 million people in the United States now can benefit from policies that she has led the effort on. 18 million. But that's my wife, Sheena. I could say 18 million. Just imagine.
And you're only at 1.4 million. But
I'm
let's,
only
I
at
mean,
1.4. You know, she makes me look like I'm slacking on the job, you know.
But yours was a statewide initiative. And
Yeah.
so you graduate law school, you start doing these good things. You begin to work with FRRC, Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. You get something on the ballot for the 2018 election. Talk about what your goal was with that and what the impact has been to so many folks.
Well, let me tell you, like I said, I've studied this thing for quite some time, and I know that felon disenfranchisement is an ugly part of our history, at least one of the ugly parts of our history. What I've seen was, and this is years and years ago, because matter of fact, remember, my bachelor's is in public safety management with a concentration in criminal justice, and so I'm studying these things, and then I'm also introduced to a coalition that was actually engaged in addressing felon disenfranchisement. That totally, like, a person gets a felony conviction, they lose their civil rights for the rest of their life, right? And to think that folks, and the civil rights is the right to bear arms, right to serve on the jury, to run for office, and the right to vote, right? You lose that for life, right? And then when I started looking into it, I started seeing that overwhelming majority of people that was losing their rights were for, like, quality of life crimes. Mm-hmm. Like, we had a guy, Howie, he was a veteran. I think he served in one of the Gulf Wars. We haven't done the best for our veterans. And, just like, the situation is today, people are having a hard time making ends meet, right? And he wrote a bad check at a grocery store because he wanted to get food to eat. And he lost his rights. For over 30 years, he's been trying to get his rights back. But because he bounced a check and the amount made it a felony, here he had a guy who put his life on the line for our country, for our democracy, now losing the right to bear arms, losing the right to vote, right, and being told that his voice doesn't matter anymore in our democracy simply because he made a mistake. That just didn't sit right with me, to know that, in Florida, and this is a true story, a guy in Broward County on Valentine's Day, rather than giving his girlfriend a dozen roses, he decides to get 12 red balloons, and he releases them in the air. And a law enforcement officer seen him and promptly arrested him. It's a felony. It's a third-degree felony. Wow. For releasing helium balloons in the air. Third-degree felony for catching a lobster with tail is too short. Third-degree felony for trespassing on a construction site. Disturbing turtle nesting eggs. You out there on the beach in Brevard County, and you happen to kick the sand around and you mess up some turtle nesting eggs. That's a third-degree felony. And at the time, the state of Florida says because you did that one thing, you no longer have the right to bear arms. You no longer can protect your family. You no longer have a right to have a voice to say how your government is ran. Something about that just didn't quite sit right, right? The ability to vote is so sacred. Nothing speaks more to citizenship than being able to vote, and to just strip that away from a citizen and not give them the ability to get that back was inhumane. And so that's what I did.
You did more than that. You took your law degree, mm-hmm. and you took your desire for justice, for mm-hmm. civil justice, and you changed not only the law, you changed the Constitution. Of the state of Florida.
That is huge.
You changed the
That is
Constitution.
huge.
So I want you to think about everyone else that was in your law class, in your class over when you were at Florida International University, and look around that class. How many of them
have changed the Constitution?
Changed the Constitution.
That's right. How many people you know have changed the Constitution?
I'm sitting right in front of them one right now.
You know,
right?
That's another notch to put on your belt, right?
Right, exactly.
Like, you're a special guy.
Because I know a guy who changed the Constitution.
You know a guy who changed the Constitution, right, among other things.
Right.
And you can say he's your friend.
Yep, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So you can always tell somebody, you know what, my friend is cooler than your friend.
How did you do this? So you get more than 64% of the voters in the state of Florida to agree with you and with the folks who also placed it on the ballot with all the petition signatures. What was the process you went about to make that happen?
Man, one of the easiest things is actually that was so key was taking the politics out of it. Because we see it. I mean, today you see when politics are in play, sometimes things are tougher for everyday regular folks. And when we can remove that, you know, I tell folks this, and I'm not diverting, Trevor. I'm going to get to your question.
Right.
But let me tell you what, I tell folks this all the time. You know, there is a space, right? We had elevated our campaign above the partisan politics, even above the explicit or implicit racial bias. We try to hold it in a space where we can connect with each other along the lines of humanity, no matter what your political or religious beliefs were, right? No matter what your status was, that we'll be able to connect along some basic lines of humanity, right? And I tell folks that when that happens, there are beautiful things that happen in this world. Like we see the aftermath of hurricanes, how we come together as communities, and you know, and we support each other, right? And listen. You're driving I-4 right now and you see an accident and somebody's laying on the ground, you know, and you decide to stop, Mike. You know, you're going to get out your car, you're going to run up to that person, and I promise you, your first question is not going to be, did you vote for Donald Trump?
Right.
Right? Or what's your immigration status or what's your sexual identity? Your first questions are going to be along the lines of, are you okay or how can I help? Right? And then what I tell people, it's in those moments the things that divide us fade away and all we see is another human being that needs help. It's in those moments that we're great as a community, that we're great as a state, that we're great as a country. And I tell folks that politicians can't make America great again. It's the people that make America great again, how we interact with each other and how we come to each other's aid, right, in the times of calamity, in the times, you know what I'm saying, of stress, when condos collapse or, you know, when floods happen. We could care less about that. We've seen cases in which we were even willing to risk our own lives to save the life of someone who we don't even know. And so if we're willing to engage in that ultimate act of love, which is the willingness to give your life for another, that's the ultimate act of love. If we're willing to do that for people that we don't know, then why do we let these labels divide us? And so it was in that frame of mind that we engaged in that campaign. And it was around love. Simple question. Do you have anybody who you love who's ever made a mistake? And do they deserve a second chance? That point blank, right? And it wasn't about whether they're Democrat, Republican, or whatever, Green Party or Tea Party or whatever kind of party. That was totally irrelevant. What was relevant was that it was someone, a human being, that made a mistake, right? And that put us all in that same bucket right there because we've all made mistakes. And then the other relevant piece is that when the debt is paid, it's paid. Like, you know, when they serve their time, let them move on. And let me tell you, overwhelming, more people agree with that than to decide who our governor was that year. We had over 5.1 million people say yes to Amendment 4, say yes to second chances. And that was primarily because it was about people who we loved and whether or not they deserved an opportunity to be a part of our society.
Desmond, what are you doing now? What are you doing now in 2026 and beyond?
Listen, I tell folks that there are two things that's very important for me. One is fulfilling the promise of Amendment 4, right? And when the people of Florida spoke, we were committed in saying that every one of the 1.4 million people that should have benefited from Amendment 4 will one day be able to do so. When we passed Amendment 4, a Florida legislature defined completion of sentence to include the payment of outstanding legal financial obligations. And so we've been working in various ways to help folks through that process. Because we believe that, when it comes to participating in the greatest act of citizenship, which is voting, I don't think no one should be forced to choose between putting food on their table and being able to vote. You have veterans who are senior citizens. They're on a fixed income. Are they going to be able to pay the $2,000 that they owed from 30 years ago? We're working with the courts and getting the courts to waive those legal financial obligations or convert them to community service hours, right? And understanding that somebody might not be able to afford to pay that debt off, but they can work that debt off through community service. We're constantly recruiting attorneys to work with our folks to help them go through that process, pro bono, of course, and help them be able to get the clearance to be able to participate in our democracy.
And you're also helping your wife, aren't you?
Well, you know what? I don't know if she needs my help that much. I mean, because
she's also dragging you along with her.
Yeah, she might be dragging me along. I mean, because listen, the beautiful thing with her is that she is like, the thing that I like is the fact that the relationships that she's developed with even governors across this country, conservative governors, and other governors, they just, she just bring people together and get people to really look at the issues and be supportive of legislation that would create pathways for every American citizen to be able to move on with their lives, overcome these mistakes, and be able to live the American dream.
That's a power couple, isn't it?
And yes.
And you got 5 powerful kids. What?
Oh, yeah.
Any of them working with you here at FRRC?
Yeah, I have. Matter of fact, 2 of my kids now are working with me. At one point, I've employed at least about 4 out of 5 of my kids. It's not all 5, and they've gone on to other things. But right now, I have 2. That's one is definitely helping in our fines and fees department, and one is helping in our communications department.
And that's what dads do.
Hey.
That's what dads do.
Yeah.
But they're your kids.
But guess what? And they had a part from, every last one of them either helped me collect petitions or count petitions to turn them into you.
Right.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about that, Mike. Yeah. I mean, come on. That was like the time that I met you and how that was transformative. That played a significant role in my path, in my journey.
Well, it may have, but let's not talk about one guy.
Don't talk about me. Let's talk about you.
No,
right?
Right. It's exactly what I'm going to say.
But you are a part of me, Mike.
Right. Well,
you're a very important part of me, because the thing about it is that I consider myself a champion of democracy, and I used to tell folks this. Like when we were fighting for Amendment 4, we were fighting just as hard for that person that wanted to vote for Donald Trump as we were for that person that wished they could have voted for Barack Obama, right? That if you're talking about democracy, you don't care how somebody votes. The fact is, the most important thing is that they vote, right? And I'll tell you, in this entire state, maybe there were 2 or 3 offices that I would walk into, and I would get this overwhelming urge to want to be a part of democracy and vote. And your office was the best office.
Well, thank you.
You had the best handbook. You needed to be like the gold standards for the rest of the supervisor elections. But that gave me faith, and that helped push the movement even further, because it's encouraging knowing that there are other people that understand how the participation is an important part of democracy. It's the lifeblood of democracy, right? And we should do things to encourage people, not discourage them, but encourage people to be a part of it.
And if you want to go through the process, like you said, you're not alone. If you're listening to this right now looking for inspiration, clearly the son of a preacher has given you some inspiration. But also just know that there are other folks who want you to succeed as well. And when Desmond was at the railroad tracks, he thought only 4 people would show up to his funeral, and only 2 would cry. When you're at your bottom, that's when you realize who's there with you. There were some folks, I'm sure, from your past, from your childhood, that were like, I don't want to hang out with Desmond anymore because he's made mistakes in life. I don't want to hang out with this guy. And did they come back to you? Or do you still remember who they are?
Listen, let me tell you something. I would tell folks that, like our campaign says, say yes to second chances, right? Listen, if I'm expecting people to forgive me, who the heck am I not to forgive others, right? Let me tell you, and I remember getting into a discussion with a pastor a few weeks back when I was telling him that in the Bible, we've all said the Lord's Prayer, right? Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And now what I told him was, in that prayer, there is one contractual element in there, right? And it's the part that says, and forgive us for our debts as we forgive our debtors, or forgive us for our trespassing as we forgive those who trespass against us. And in that exchange there, what it's basically saying is that, God, I want you to forgive me, but only if I'm willing to forgive others. Who am I not to believe in second chances for the person that has transgressed against me?
You've talked a lot today about your faith.
Oh, yes.
And one of the things that we're going to ask every single one of our guests is what your 3 resilience routines are. Things that when times are down and you're not feeling good about yourself, calm you down if you're not in a good way. And I'm assuming faith is one of yours?
Yeah, most definitely. Faith is one of it. And then, of course, I got my wife that is always there if I'm ever down, I remember she gave an interview one time and she said one of the tricks to our relationship was the fact that we never wanted to quit on the same day. Mm-hmm. And so there were times when I would get weary, she was there to pick me up and quicken my spirit. And then the universe aligns itself. But at the core of it is a belief that we have this song in African American churches about the words are, I don't feel no ways tired, come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that the road would be easy, but I don't believe that he's brought me this far to leave me, right? And just knowing, having that faith that, man, if I am doing the right thing, even though it may not seem like I'm getting results right now, and I may feel like giving up, don't. Just hold on. God has not brought you this far just to abandon you, right? He's brought you through a lot. He's brought us through a lot, and he's got a lot more to take us through. It's a lot more there for us. And so I get encouraged by that. And I hold on, and it works out. I remember when I was homeless, I remember this person that used to be a teacher was homeless, and she asked me a question one time. She said, Devin, when's the darkest part of the night? And I'm struggling trying to figure that out. Like, I need to get some formula or something like that to figure that out. And after struggling for a minute, she just tapped me on the shoulder and said, right before dawn. Mm-hmm. Right before dawn. And so in the moments when it seems the darkest, my faith tells me just to hold on for a little while longer because dawn is coming. Mm-hmm. And it always do. Dawn always comes.
Desmond Meade, thank you very much for being part of Bearing Scars. How can folks get a hold of you?
Listen, I am on all of the social media handles at Desmond Meade, and definitely my org, Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, www.floridarrc.com, floridarrc.com. Folks can go to our website, see how they can get involved. Because I think that I would say about at least 80% of your listeners is going to have a family member or friend who's made a mistake in their life at some point or another.
You're off by about 20%.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah. Everybody.
Okay.
Everybody has 3 things in their life that they're ashamed of and just don't want anyone to find out about it.
Oh, wow.
To absolutely check you out on any of those platforms, DesmondMeade.com also has links to all the places folks can get a hold of you.
Yep. And they can always go back to the first episode.
Right.
They can always go back to episode number 1.
Stick around for the feature we call Scar Tissue.
Hi, I'm Gary Sinise. Our veterans put everything on the line to protect our freedom. We may never be able to repay them for their sacrifice, but we can show them just how much we appreciate all they've done. please visit www.volunteer.va.gov.
Enjoy your scars, scars, scars. Enjoy your scars.
Now we're going to discuss scar tissue. Scar tissue is what's left behind after you've bared your scars, overcome, and redefined your life's legacy. Desmond Meade is a perfect example of what this program is about. From his beginnings and all of the promise that he had as a child, to his own, as he fully admits, knuckleheaded mistakes, and beyond just knuckleheaded mistakes, where he found himself in prison, homeless, court-martialed from the military, and standing on those tracks. And yet this son of a preacher and a preacher's wife turned all that around and became an immense inspiration, not just for me personally, but for so many throughout the state of Florida, our nation, and the world. If your child, your friend, or yourself even, are going through a time in your life where you're feeling like there is nothing left, where you've reached the end, where you're going to jump on those tracks, I want you to think of Desmond Meade and the decision that he made. When I was at the depths of my own life, I called Desmond Meade, and he helped me get through it. In talking to Desmond, he told me that if there is anyone out there who feels as if they are at the position he was at, standing on those tracks, waiting for the end, but wanting to rebuild, give him a call. Give Desmond a call. Give me a call. Check out DesmondMeade.com. Check out Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. Call them. There are so many people who are going through what you may be going through today. You are not alone. We've all got this scar tissue. We're all bearing scars. And those on this program are here to help you get through it.